Hi everybody, it's Annette from The Art of Intuition. And today we are going to delve into stopping old realities and how they can kind of come back in on us and we don't realize we've kind of re-entered an old reality. It's that old adage, you can put lipstick on a pig, but it's still a pig. Our realities sometimes they kind of sneak up on us and we think that we're in the clear, we think we've cleared it, and we're in something new, but it's actually the old one all over again. Sometimes it's very obvious because it's the same people, but even in that case, we a lot of times will sugarcoat that, make it look different, convince ourselves it's different, because we only really kind of look at our world, and there are parts of in our human consciousness, all we did was look at our world, right? We didn't really care about how our choices impacted other people. We didn't really think about other people. We just thought about what we wanted to do. We never thought about the domino effect. Part of that is we couldn't see the domino effect. We couldn't see how our one choice here is going to affect 6 realities over and this person's reality over here, and then now we're imposing on this person over here. We never really looked at all that, and we never could put it all together. So because we don't have the clarity and the foresight to see it, we just would go on and not think about other people, right? And make our own choices. And we didn't care about the backlash. We didn't care about the fallout. It didn't matter to us in a lot of ways. It just didn't matter. So when we kind of see old realities come in, they can come in a lot of different ways. But because we can be so focused on our world, we don't really take a beat to look at where is everyone else coming in from. And that's a really important thing to remember, because if everyone else is coming in the same frequency, then we are now back in that old reality. Nothing has shifted. We've now played in it again. Now, we're going to kind of start a little rudimentary on it, and then we'll try to expand it out a little bit. Sometimes it can be as simple as hearing from a person you haven't heard from a long time, because you close that reality out. It could be someone you used to see a lot, and now all of a sudden you don't see them anymore. They're gone, right? And, any video that gets posted, if it talks about how to get somebody back, everybody wants to watch it, right? I know when I was in those spaces and places, I would do the same thing. Like, how does that work? Let me see that, How do I energetically get someone to talk to me or whatever? Because we all have that sense of wanting something to be a different way. Our human is always wants something to be a different way, right? It never liked the way a certain reality ended. So we want to change it. We want to shift it. We want to understand it. Through ascension, we start to understand more. We start to see more. We see our roles in certain situations. See our roles in why we do certain things. We see our roles in how certain things came about and why we played the role we did. We get more understanding in it. We get more clarity in it. We can see the energetic alignment of things. How, even if it didn't turn out the way we wanted it to, how we started it, how it ended, why it had to end, what we went on to after that, how we shifted and changed in it, how the other people moved through the reality, how we might have physically just picked up and left the reality altogether. Like, we used to go somewhere, and we stopped going there. We quit the job, we left the area, whatever we did, we picked ourselves up and actually physically left. And a lot of times, that's what we physically have to do, because the reality is not just the people in it. Sometimes it can be the place. It's our whole body frequency that created it. It's not just this one person makes this reality a reality. It's everything about our frequency that brought all these things in to create it. It's not just that one person. You remove that one person, holy shit, it's a new reality. That's the human way of thinking about it. That one person impacts the whole thing. Now, in a way, that's true and that's not true. One person doesn't create the whole thing. We created the whole thing, but we didn't create it from a human consciousness. It's all created from a higher consciousness, even though we don't see how our human consciousness is playing into that bigger story. Yes, we're making choices within it with our human consciousness, which is why the whole thing goes awry, right? It goes awry because we're playing, it's like we're trying to play chess. Someone else is playing chess, and we're not even playing checkers. We're playing Candyland. We just want to get what we want. We don't care the fallout of the shit that happens when we get it. We just want what we want, and that's the difference, right? Our soul creates these paths for us, and we can walk down the easy paths. We can walk down what we felt is easy, but it wasn't easy. We can create a lot of karma. We just can continue to make choices from our human consciousness, which mix up the whole game, right? Whole game gets all frustrated when we do that. It gets fractured, right? And we fracture off in the middle, in the midst of all that. And we're just talking about this reality. Let's not even, if we even bring in multi-dimensional us's and how we're doing it all over the place, right? So a lot of times when you get to different spaces in ascension, you start to understand the closeout's super important. Closing out the reality, a lot of times we will leave, we'll move spaces. We completely close it out. We don't go to this place anymore, so we don't see any of the same people anymore. We might move to a different state. We might move to just a different house. We will shift a lot of stuff because we have to let our frequency reset. You know, and that is not what humans like to do. Our humans do not like to let the time pass for frequency to reset. That's why we keep going in the same loop, you know. Yeah, we might tick up a little bit, it might look a little bit better, but because we don't give ourselves these 6 months, 8 months, years to reset a frequency and to get our body frequency in a different I'm gonna use the word home, our base frequency. That's probably a better word. Because your home frequency is technically always going to be shifting up and up and up. But it's your base frequency, right? Where you're going to set at most of the time. You know, where your normal state is. Our human body consciousness starts out extremely low. That's why most of ascension, you're trying to get the body consciousness up to change the reality. And then when the reality starts to fall away, our human doesn't like that because we wanted that reality. We just wanted it prettier. You know, we wanted everyone nicer in that reality. We wanted to have more money in that reality. We wanted that reality, but with an ascension light on it or a soul spin on it, but kind of the same one. And we start to realize after a while it doesn't work like that, right? We can't have it all both ways. You don't get it your way. It's not Burger King. Because our human realities and our soul realities, they're not the same. They're not going to be built on the same structure. They're not built on the same beliefs. They're not built on the same values. So we start closing things out, whether we want to, whether they collapse on their own because we won't close them out, whether we start to realize eventually, yeah, this is ending. You can start to see the chinks in it. You can start to see the disintegration of it around you. You might know you have so much time. We're going to use linear time before it's completely gone, but you know it. You can just see it fleeting away. The things that made it up start to untether. You know, that they start to just disintegrate away because your frequency is shifting. So we move on, and whether it's a forced move on, whether we are just completely, God, I'm getting that picture of angry birds when, it's an angry birds where they're flinging the things at the pigs, like you're just like, I can't think what it's called, but you're just like shooting slingshots. You're like slingshotting yourself out of that reality, and sometimes our universe just throws us out of there because we won't leave on our own. We're too attached to it. We have too much into it. We get all corded up in it because we wanted it to be. We're not so much even corded up in the reality we have. We just want it to be a different one. So we think if we wait long enough, we can shift the reality to be what we want it to be. Not understanding that we have to physically close that one out to have any chance at getting our frequency up to then perhaps bring in another one. Might not be with the same people. That's a caveat we don't like. It might be. You don't know. Normally for me, it's not with the same people. Just because it's a lot easier to start off with someone in the frequency you are now in than to try to bring someone else from a different frequency and try to work with that. You know, because technically, unless they are shifting as fast as you are or shifting toward embracing more ascended states of consciousness and body consciousness, it's just going to be too big of a divide eventually. You know, the only reason they stay around for so long is because we still hold it in the body, and we still hold that frequency somewhere in the body so they can be there. It's just not as strong of a hold as it used to be. And you start to see that, you know, over what feels like linear time, it takes a while to get the body vibration up. And then you start to notice, like, it's a little bit of sidebar, but you might have said, okay, now I want to upgrade the house, and the house is really important that I upgrade or paint, or I have to beautify it, I have to make it lighter or brighter, or bring in plants or whatever you're doing because you feel the energy's off in the space. And then all of a sudden it might move to, well, now the yard needs work. Now the energy's off in the yard because you're expanding your field out. Your field is not so much now just this anymore. It's expanding out. Now it's the house. Now it's the yard. Eventually it's the block, and you're just going to start to feel that. So as we shift, there are still parts of and I know the question that I get on this is, well, if I've shifted, how can the old still come back in, right? How does it still come back in? Because there's still an unconscious, and you might even know you're doing it, because ascension is really when your unconsciousness becomes your consciousness. You don't really have a subconscious anymore. That's probably a better word to use. You don't really have a subconscious. It's now just consciousness. You don't have anything going on in the background. You don't have a muddled signal. But for a lot of these realities, we didn't want to close out, and these are the ones we're talking about, because the ones we don't care about, the ones we closed out and we're ready to move on from, we're not asking for that back again. But there are some that we're like, oh, I wish that could have been different. You have that if only it could have shifted this way. If only that could have happened this way. If only this would have changed, then the whole thing might have worked better. It would have fit. It would have been aligned. And so what we'll do is I have one rule I will do. I don't contact anyone that's not in my current reality to bring them into my current reality, right? If I have not talked to someone for so long, I do not contact them. I will not bring them in. If they're not organically here, they're not aligned to be here. Now, that does not mean they might not be aligned tomorrow and they might show up or I might hear from them. But if they're not in it already, then I do not drag them in. Because really what you're doing is you're trying to pull someone else in to reality they're not organically in. And that's one tricky way sometimes we will do it. We'll try to bring them in. Sometimes our universe will give us a test to see, are you really done with this thing, this energetic string, in a sense, this pattern you have? Are you really done with that? Let's have this person come back in. And are you going to really look at what am I seeing here? Now, this can be a little tricky because, we don't want to expect the same thing, right? Because then we just recreate the same reality again. So you're aware enough you want to be aware enough not to expect the same thing. But you also want to be aware enough to notice it when you see the same thing, when you see the same behavior, when you see the same thing start to play out again. When you feel, even you can feel it. I have certain people that they'll always open the conversation the same way. They always open the text message the same way. How are you? That's always how it'll start. And I 9 times out of 10 don't answer those because it's the same pattern this person would always use. It's just when they want something, I might hear from them for years and they come in with something like that. So I've gotten to the point now I don't even answer that. I don't even answer those texts anymore. One, if you're really concerned about that, you could call, number one. And two, it's more of fishing it's just trying to bait you to get you to, kind of open the door again. Some people call it opening the portals again, coming back in. Because since we physically leave places, people in human consciousness don't really understand that, so they don't understand, well, you were here, now you're not here anymore, and what happened? But a lot of them sometimes you might have them kind of open up again. Don't expect the same thing. But if I see the same behavior from the same person it's always the same way, you start to say, no, I'm not even gonna bother. I don't want anything to do with that reality anymore. The energy signature that was creating that, I have transcended that. I have cleared it. I do not want to be dealing with that kind of those realities anymore. I am done. And when you say you were done, a lot of times that's almost like your universe saying, okay, are you really? Are you really done? Let me see. I'm going to throw a little stuff your way and see if you're really done. So these are classic ways we re-enter. And sometimes we use it as an excuse. Oh, I don't want to expect the same thing, so let me see. The issue we have is we don't really want to see. We think we have the frequency now to shift everything, and you can shift the realities you're in. But you have to remember something, let's tie it back into the beginning. Don't be just so focused on your creation. Look at how it's going to affect everybody else. Your vibration does affect everybody else. You transcending that vibration, everyone can feel that. It's like it goes through your field. So whether they feel it consciously or subconsciously, they can still feel that. And a lot of times that's when we get a lot of people. It's that old adage, when you're over someone, you hear from them again. It's that you're technically not over them. Your frequency's moving on to a point where there's an urgency on the human consciousness front to initiate something, right? And then it starts again, right? And these are a lot of games we played in the human consciousness. And now when we're in the ascended consciousness, we understand closing things out. You'll get to a point where you understand that. You'll start to understand how things are slowly starting to close out. All of a sudden things are starting to kind of fade away. Am I going to let them fade away, or am I going to try to hold on to them because I don't want this person to go with it? We want part of the reality to go, but not everybody in the reality. Normally it's all one big bundle. Everyone in that reality goes with the reality. Very few times do you take people with you. Normally those people will still kind of be on the fringe, and then you see if they re-enter your reality. And you can see yourself going deeper into fear of, and if you have someone that stayed around for a while, you might, every time you shift to reality, you might have the fear come up, oh, I'm going to lose that person now. Will that person still be in this one? Will they be in this one? Will they still be there? And that's your body just working through that deeper fear of them going and cutting more of the attachment. I have one person I know, I do that too. Every time I can see a shift, I'll go through a period of time I won't hear from them or see them for a while. And I have to very much remember I'm cutting that cord of attachment. If that person's there, great. If they're not, that's okay too. I would be sad. I would clear a lot of sadness over that. But in another way, I understand it. And I understand that you cannot drag people who don't want to be in your reality into your reality, because now you're just re-entering an old reality. And everything you've done up to that point, in a way, is kind of, it just pulls you back down. You're anchoring in. You're kind of digging your heels in when you don't want to dig your heels in. All these realities have to go because you have to shift and change and grow, and you can't do that in these old realities. That's why you will end up moving around. I don't know anyone who hasn't really moved around. The only people I know who haven't done a lot of that is if they're more anchored with children at the time, and that might postpone some of that movement for them. But when it's their time, they're going to have to start moving around, because as your frequency shifts, everything around you starts to shift. Being in the cities is really hard for a lot of us now, and most of us have the exodus to cities. No one's really in the cities anymore because it's too dense, and we knew we had to get out. We can't really sustain. It takes so much to sustain your frequency when you're around that many people. So when you feel like you're not re-entering an old reality, that's when you really want to take a look at it. You really want to take a look at it. Don't expect the same thing. I'm going to reiterate this again because it's super important. Don't expect the same thing, because then you will recreate the whole thing, right? But don't ignore the same old pattern. The same pattern again and again, just like I said with the text message. When it always starts that way, I know where it's going. I'm not even going to bother, because that's how it starts, Now, let's say this is, once again, it's a simple explanation, but sometimes they're the best ones. If that person called me on the phone, that person said, hey, I want to talk to you, blah, 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 or there was some kind of different entry point, that would mark to me it's a different behavior. Am I getting a different aspect of them? And even if you're getting a different aspect of them, is that an aspect they can hold? Is that an aspect you want to create a new reality with? Is that an aspect, or are they just trying to shift? They've shifted some, but not enough to really hold a reality together. You can't hold realities together with people in a human consciousness, because when anything goes south, they're going to go back to the home frequency of the human consciousness, which is the only person I'm concerned about is my world. And there is a part of that in our ascension too, where we're so concerned about our own world and building our own world, but we do understand how we affect others. And we understand that. Maybe in the fifth dimension we don't. You know, maybe when you get it takes the eighth or ninth dimension to look at it and go, oh, now I see how when I do this, this happens here. Or when my vibration shifts and I'm, you know, shifting the house, it's going to affect them because now the vibration of the space is higher. So anything that's not that vibration within someone else is going to start to come up. So now everyone's bitching and fussing because they're clearing that from their body, because their body's getting pulled up to a different frequency. There's a lot of ways we're going to affect spaces. There's a lot of ways we're going to affect people. Sometimes it can be them entering back in. And sometimes you might feel the pull to go back to a place. But if you've exited this space and now you feel the pull to go back, it might be a super long time before you go back. 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years, that's nothing in ascension. It used to be an old joke when I worked for, I don't know. I guess it was the state. I can't remember. It was decades ago. But, you know, they were like, a year to the state, that was nothing for these people. That was like 20 minutes, you know. A year could go by and nothing would get done. It didn't matter. Now, in ascension, that's different. I mean, it can be the same thing where you can, it's different yet the same, right? It's kind of the same ideology, I guess you might want to say, where 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it takes a while to really shift things. It takes a while to really, you know, get your frequency to your body frequency to a different set point. It's not 2 weeks. It's not 2 fucking days. You know, it can be years. It can take a long time. That's why when you say, okay, I'm going to leave this, I'm going to leave this job or whatever it is, this friendship, this relationship, this whole space, everything about everything. It depends on what you're closing out. Sometimes we close out many things, then we close out the bigger things. Because if you can't close out the small things, you're not going to close out the bigger things, you know. And everything starts going like dominoes after that. It's like that domino effect. Everything starts to go. Don't be surprised when, you know, you start to, a lot of time passes. And then you might feel the urge to enter back into something. You're like, let me go to this place and just let me see where everybody is. And everyone else might be exactly where they were. That's human consciousness. It doesn't shift that fast. You know, what could have been 3 or 4 years for us, it felt like no time at all, but we're completely in a different space, right? And then, but you'll see everyone else is kind of still in the same space. And that's why realities don't shift when we're in the human consciousness for decades upon decades, lots of times. Not a real shift. You know, yes, their scenery changes. You know, our scenery would change in human consciousness, but the frequency of what we're creating it from did not change. So we kept getting a lot of the same stuff. I mean, it would tick up a little bit, but not enough to really change the, you know, you might, you know, increase the brightness on something, but you're not really changing the lens you're looking at it in. You know, it's kind of still the same. So I'm going to leave it at that today. So really be honest. Put it through the test. Put it through the ascension test. Am I entering into an old reality? Is it really something that is different here, or am I entering into it? Just because you are now at a higher place does not mean everyone else that comes in is going to be there. You have to look at where everybody is. Don't just look at where you are. Look at what everyone's doing. Look at what they're showing you. You know, they can't hide their energy, you know, just like we can't. You know, that's going to shine through. Is it the same patterns? You know, don't expect it, but if you see it, don't be afraid to call that out, you know, whether it be to them or just to yourself, and go like, yeah, that's the same old shit. That's the same old reality. Nope, no more. All right, keep practicing the art of intuition.